So now that we've created this basic chart with some of the data from our table, we can work with the setup and customize this chart. So if you don't see the chart editor on the right hand side, when you select the chart, click the three dots near the top right and choose Edit Chart to open that. There's two tabs here, Setup and Customize. In the Setup tab, the first option is to change the chart type. When you click on this, you should see several suggested charts near the top, and these are ones the program thinks will work well for the data you have. And you can scroll down and see several other options, some of which might not work depending on the kind of data you have selected. In this case, I want to switch and use this line chart option here instead. So when I select that, my chart will update to show the new type. Other options on this page include the data range. So let's say you actually want to add the graduate series in on here. You could click on the select data range, choose add another range, and then populate the additional options that you want to add in there as well. I'm not going to in this case. I'll go ahead and click delete that one I just added and choose OK. So I have my original data range. Depending on how the data populated when you added it, you might need to change how the ranges are combined. In this case, it's fine as it is. We have the x-axis, the horizontal axis there, showing content from row 5. And if I move my chart down a bit, you can see that is the semesters across the top, and that is correct. But if you find one of these is not correct, you can always click here and choose a different option. And the same is true of the series, or in this case, that refers to each of the lines on my chart. If I want to change the options here, let's say I want to reverse the order of these, I could click on the top one and choose the next option, click on the bottom option and choose the first one, and then that kind of reverses the order there. I'm going to go ahead and put that back the way it was. And finally, at the bottom, there's a couple options here, depending again on how the default chart is created. In some cases, if you don't see the right labels, you might need to check some of the boxes here or modify some of the options here. But in this situation, I have my semesters in the bottom like I want, and my lines are labeled correctly by the information in column A, so everything is right for me. So we're going to go next to the Customize tab. And when you first click on that, every single option in here you can click on it to change the settings. Depending on the type of chart you have, you might see different options. But with this being a line chart, I see information about the axis, series. For pie charts, you'll see something different, of course. Chart style is really just the appearance, so depending on how you want to use this, you might need to change some of these. We're going to skip this for now though. Chart, axis, and titles is very important. A part of good report practices, you need to make sure you have good clear titles and that your axes are labeled or the data is labeled. So in this case, I do need to modify my title because it didn't pull in the actual title of the report. So what I will do is I'm going to go back to the table here and I'm going to just copy out the information from that title. So I'll select it, right click and choose copy. And then because I moved out of the chart editor, it kind of jumped me out. So I'm going to show another way you can jump to edit a specific part of a chart. So once I select my chart, if I actually double click on the part I want to modify, it's going to jump me right to the setting to modify that part directly. So in this case, I double clicked on the title and it brought me right in to edit the title here from the drop down you can see. So I'm going to paste in the title from the table, but I actually have to add one more point because we're just looking at undergraduate. So I'm going to add in undergraduate because again, I only took part of the data from that table. So Stony Brook University undergraduate headcount by place enrollment by place of residence. And when I hit enter, it will apply that title over here to the actual chart. I can add a subtitle if I want to. And I definitely want to take a look at the label on my horizontal and vertical axis. So I'll select horizontal axis now. And this is not level or place of residence, but this should actually be semester and year. And I don't have any vertical axis title currently, so I will select vertical axis title and add that in, and that will be the number of undergraduate students enrolled. And then I will see all of that information actually show up in my chart. Continuing on to series, that is going to refer to the actual lines on my chart. And I can modify all the series together, apply to all series. So I could make the line thicker for all of the series, for example. Or from the drop down here, I can choose one of the specific series and modify just it. So for example, I can modify only the blue line, the living in campus residences line. And if I want to make that one a little bit thicker, I can do that. And another way I can jump in to modify this line is on the chart. If I click on the different lines, it jumps me directly to that part in the editor over here to modify it. So I can make that line match as well, for example. The next option here is legend, and this is the labels of my series basically, the living in campus and not living in campus. So I can choose to position it somewhere specific if I would like by choosing different locations from here. Or if you just leave it on auto, it will put it where it best sees space based on the way you format your chart. Continuing down to the horizontal axis, we actually already set the label, but this is how I set how the labels look in here. And in some cases, especially for horizontal axis, you might find that you can't read all of the labels, and this Sant labels option here can be helpful. So depending on how your labels fall, you might need to play with the slant just to make sure you can read that all well. For vertical axis, in some cases you might want to change what scale appears over here or what the minimum and the maximum numbers are. So in this case, highest point here is pretty close to the top of the chart. So if I want to give a little more space above that, I could go to my vertical axis and set the maximum value not to just be automatic based on the chart, but if I make it 20,000, it gives me a little bit of padding above the top of my chart there. And finally, in the grid lines and ticks, this is how you're going to see lines on the chart. So if you want to see more lines or fewer lines in the chart, you would modify that here. You could choose to have some minor grid lines in there just to help show those points better. You could see the ticks on the side so that you can see estimate of where those line up, and you can set what kind of ticks you see up here in the spacing. So if I want to see 5 ticks within every count, then I can set my ticks up to 5 there per count. I could change it over to steps and have these marked off by every 1,000. Things like that will allow you to really fine-tune the way your chart looks. I'm going to turn off those minor ticks for now and leave it on major. And that is a quick overview of how you set up your chart, maybe change it from a different type, and customize the basic settings for your chart.